mental toughness. How do you develop mental toughness in those that you coach? So how do you develop in your players?
So mental toughness is a process, right? No one gets mentally tough overnight. No one gets hard overnight. You got to start where they are. If they soft as butter, you got to put them in the freezer for 6 months, right? Harden the butter up. Then you got to take the butter out of the refrigerator and put it in the freezer. Harden it up some more, right? It could be, shoot, some kids, it's an 18-month process to get them to a functional level of toughness, like to play my sport, football, right? Like it comes back to you got to look for the right kids in the process, but at the end of the day, like you're going to have kids that come in that need to be developed. And, you start off, get them to do a little bit of extra, get them to set goals, get them to want to be a little bit better. They get a little bit better. They see success. They come back. They reevaluate their goals. It's just a process. It's a weekly process of them to set goals, achieve goals. A monthly process, a weekly process, and then 6 months from now you got a different kid. A year from now you got a different kid. A year and a half from now you got a really different kid. Now the faster they get the process of goal attainment, right? Goal achievement, the faster they're able to develop. But it's different for everybody. I think everybody can develop a level of toughness and mental toughness, but some kids ain't mentally tough and they're never going to be great at it, So it goes back to you got to look for it in the process.
Now, how have you utilized this with leaders that you deal with? How do you determine, how do you really assess their mental toughness and help them get stronger?
So I don't really assess mental toughness as much as I assess grit. The whole underlying factor of all of my leadership stuff is I'm going to hire people that exhibit positive leadership traits that are capable. I'm never going to hire a qualified person based on credentials, ever. Right? Now, there's certain positions where they got to have a certain understanding of, right, like their capabilities got to match kind of the job. Right. But at the end of the day, if they're not capable, I'm never going to hire them. Right. Because capable people always overcome. They always find a way to get around something. There are no roadblocks to a capable person. And that's kind of my deciding line where I draw the line with my leaders, right? All of my leaders got to be capable people. You can't have qualified people that are incapable in leadership positions because then they only have their experiences to go on to solve problems. And my whole thing with leadership is a leader's whole job is to look into the future, see problems, take corrective action now so that those problems don't manifest themselves in the future. And if you're not capable, you have a hard time looking into the future and seeing anything because you're always looking in the past as a qualified person, trying to analyze what happened before and how you can apply that to the future.
Okay. That makes sense. Now, as far as when you're dealing with grit or mental toughness, what do you do when you're faced with these situations? How do you operate in high, extreme environments with that mental, the critical mind going off on you?
So I think, this is one of the things I learned in the SEAL teams that was just absolutely awesome, right? The more you bleed in training, the less you bleed in battle. And basically, if you're training at 1,000,000 miles an hour, when you actually get in the game, things will slow down for you, right? Because like in the game, like my players always say, Coach, the game is so much easier than practice is with you, right? Like when I'm the special teams coordinator, it's always the same feedback. Practice is maybe the hardest thing I do, and then the games is easy, right? That's how you want it to be. So practice fast, right? Go hard. Make sure this generation is really big on digital learning. So I literally try to send everything to their phones. I don't do a lot of talking in front of them. I don't do a lot of, meeting time and stuff like that because it's not really functional for them. So we send a lot of stuff to their phones, and practice fast. Get them, tuned up, shorter, high intensity, fast. Maybe not so much hitting intensity, but just speed-wise intensity.
One of the things that I also notice about you is you've never been afraid to put yourself into uncomfortable situations. Like you gave the example of, the situation when you were in high school and how you were dealing with bullies, right? So that's one example. Or Top Shot and the different shows that you were on, you were in some really extreme environments where it wasn't just about your physical body. It was more so about how you problem solve. So how do you, you know, how do you teach that to to your people?
So, one of the most kind of monumental things that my dad used to do, he wouldn't answer any questions, which was really interesting to me. So, like, if you asked him a question, why is the sky blue? His first response was, why do you think the sky is blue? And what happened was you weren't allowed, like, you stopped asking questions until you really got down to something that you were trying to figure out, right? So, like, hey, man, why is the sky blue? And then you would think about it, man, the sky's blue because space must be blue, right? And then you go to your dad. When I go to my dad, I'm like, hey, Dad, why is the sky blue? And he'd be like, why do you think the sky is blue? And I said, well, I think space is blue. And he said, okay. He said, well, it's a little different. He said, the atmosphere refracts, right, the sunlight that's coming in from the sun, and it refracts it at a frequency that's blue. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And so then when you got asked, why is the sky blue? You weren't just saying something that you got told. You had thought about it, why is the sky blue? And now you have something to say it. And so what would happen is when you got into situations, it would be more so like, okay, how can I get out of this situation? What do I need to do? What corrective action do I need to take to, like I said, as a leader does, prevent failure in the future, right?
Right.
And that's where it came from. Like my dad never answered a question. I tell the story. Like I first started driving, so I got my driver's license, and I came home. I was thinking I was going to go drive the car, and he was like, "No, you got to take all the wheels off the car." It's like, what? He's like, "Yeah, you got to be able to change the tires, so take all the wheels off the car." I was like, "All right." So I went out there, got the jacks out the garage, jacked the car up, took all the wheels off. He's like, "All right, great. Put all the wheels back on." So put all the wheels back on. He's like, "All right, you can drive now." And then I crashed it in the back of his truck because I forgot to put the clutch in. So, but like that's how he taught me things, right? And then maybe 6 months later, I needed to redo the brakes on it. And he's like, "All right, go fix the brakes." He didn't tell me how. He didn't say anything. 5 hours later, I had the whole wheel taken apart, the hub, the brakes, everything. And he came out. He said, "Man, what's taking you so long?" I said, "Man, I'm trying to fix the brakes." He was like, "All right, let me show you." But I had spent 5 hours. I had the whole right wheel of the car off, everything, all the way down to the bearings. And he showed me, hey, take these two bolts out right here, get the C-clamp, push the plunger back in, reset the brakes, put them back on, put them two bolts back on. And I kind of looked at him like, yo, are you serious? Like, you had me out here for 5 hours for something that would take me 15 minutes? But at the end of the day, what he was really teaching me was problem-solving skills, right? And that's why I say, like, a lot of people think you can learn leadership and all this other stuff. You got to have a baseline understanding of how to solve problems, what problems look like. It doesn't come naturally to people to be able to solve problems. And I know why I got it, because my dad hammered me on it. You got to be able to think. He'd always say, you better be able to think your way out of bad situations. So
that's how you teach your players and those that you lead. You teach them how to use their mind to solve problems. So would you say that, like, as far as being
let me quantify that.
Sure.
I only select leaders that have that capacity. Right?
Right.
I don't select leaders that don't have that capacity. If you can't problem solve with me, you have no position of leadership in my organization. Period.
That makes sense.
That's your number one job. And I can't tell you what the problem's going to be, right?
Right.
20 years ago, you telling me you knew what Amazon's problems were going to be? You don't. But they got problem solvers, so they're able to solve them, and they're able to recover and, make course adjustments. Look at Blockbuster. Probably a whole bunch of great leaders, right? Out of business.
True. Yeah.
Right? So why is that? Because you had a bunch of qualified people in charge. You didn't have capable people that could foresee in the future, take corrective action now, and prevent bad things from happening to your organization.